Welcome. You have arrived at STEM City USA, a safe and trusted community where you can find people and resources to help you become everything you are and beyond, accessible to all who reach for the stars.
Good morning. Welcome to the Bay of Stars and Stripes Career Day. I am Moria Bowman, an 11th grader from Gainesville, Florida. We are excited to have Disney with us today. I am introducing our National Chairman, Vice Admiral Walt Davis, a retired fighter pilot and the founder of EvoNexus, one of the largest tech incubators in the country. Now, here is Admiral Davis.
Well, hopefully all of you can see me. I'm actually sitting in the library of the Duke University here in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina today, trying to get to you, and the communications is not working that well. So can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear this, if someone can? Okay, I'll continue. This is a fascinating day for us. We have Dr. Lanny Smoot, who was really, we found out, one of the first recipients of one of our Bay Awards. Lanny is now a head of research for Disneyland and has worked at Disney for the last 31 years and has 102 patents. You'll be introduced to Lanny pretty soon, but what I'd like to mention to you today, just to set this up, is that all of us have in common that we have visited Disneyland, Disney World, or we have some Disney thing in our home today. And if you remember, the thing that really impressed me when I went to Disney the first time was their vision of the future. And in that vision, you will see and remember, they showed us what the kitchen was going to be like in the future. They showed us what cars were going to be like. They showed us a version of the Dick Tracy watch. And what's impressed me today is that vision they had, the things we have today are even better than the vision. So I think we're going to hear a great vision today, and we'll hear. And if you go to Disney, you'll see more vision. But I still believe that the future will really be better than what we envision today. So thank you for being here, and back over you, Mario.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Vice Admiral Davis. I'm Celia Hurst from Sarasota, Florida, 12th grade senior at Booker High School and Bay Stars and Stripes student ambassador. Bruce Crawford is a retired Army Lieutenant General and a senior vice president at Jacobs. In the Army, he was responsible for the largest information technology organization in the world, and now he leads STEM at Jacobs. He definitely knows technology.
Celia, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here once again, to be a part of, as Admiral Davis talked about earlier, and he mentioned so aptly, investing in our future. Because today really is all about investing in not only our future, but the way by which we're going to do that is investing in what we consider to be, and what I consider to be, the next greatest generation of leaders, specifically focused on STEM. And so to our audience today is really about a couple of things. So number one, it's about exposing you to information that prepares you not only for a college in the STEM field, but also that prepares you for a career as a STEM professional. But the second piece of this is an opportunity for you to understand the art of the possible from ordinary people who have done just simply amazing and extraordinary things. And so I'm a true believer that awareness is really the gateway to opportunity. And so my challenge to the audience today is, as you listen to Mr. Smoot, and others impart wisdom and knowledge, your fundamental question should be, why not me? All right. And so again, just honored to be a part of it today and to play just a small role in investing in our future. Thank you.
Greetings, and humble salutations. I am Miles Sullivan, a recent graduate of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University and current key staff member of the Caring and Sharing Learning School. I'm introducing today to you Mr. Lanny. A Disney Imagineer is the person responsible for making sure all technology and rides are safely handled and entertained. Mr. Smoot currently has over 100 patents, the most in all of Disney, and he has currently entertaining children and adults from ages 8 to 80. Mr. Smoot continues to aspire to inspire all of that occurs in Disney and continues to make record-breaking breakthroughs.
Well, thank you very much, Miles. And you know, I enjoy giving these talks because I get to brag a little bit. I get to talk a little bit about myself, and it might seem, maybe he's really, stuck up there. But what is important, and I think that the previous speaker mentioned, is that you can be like me. You can do the things that I've done. I'm going to have a little fun in this presentation by talking about what I am doing now, but going all the way back to how I started out and how I got to do some of the fun things that I've done. I entitled my talk Inventing, which is what I do. I've made many new inventions that have been used at the Walt Disney Company and used at previous companies. I'm going to explain a little bit more about what engineering really is as related to the sciences. What's the difference between science and engineering? And all of this leads to having fun. Enjoying what you do and being able to contribute at the same time. So I'm going to start my presentation by calling it again a fun career. And I'm going to hopefully move forward with a slide. Okay, here we go. That's a little better. Okay, so I am what's called a Disney Research Fellow. Now, that's a really amazing title I'm very proud of. It means that I've achieved the highest level of technical achievement at the Walt Disney Company in terms of research. I just, a couple of months ago, broke the 100 patent record, and that's pretty good considering that there are, over 100,000 employees at the Walt Disney Company, and I have the greatest number of patents of all of them. And the Walt Disney Company is a huge machine. It's a huge company. I'm going to name some of the parts of the company, and you can sort of think about what they do. First of all, most people are familiar with the theme parks. There are 2 theme parks in the United States, one in Disneyland, one in California, which is Disneyland, one in Florida, which is Disney World. But the company has parks all around the world, including in Shanghai, including China, including in Hong Kong, in Japan, etc. So it's a gigantic company. And the Imagineers, that word, which really is a combination of imagination and engineering, design all of those theme parks. We also design the cruise ships, which we have a fleet of luxury cruise ships that take people all around the world. We have consumer products. If you bought a toy, a piece of furniture, anything that you've bought that from the Disney company is likely to have been manufactured or designed, I should say, by the Consumer Products Organization at Disney. We are one of the largest producers of video games. I know a lot of young people love video games. Well, Disney makes tons of them. We publish books. We have a sports network, ESPN. If you love sports, you know what that is. We've just recently started video streaming, which means providing services on TV that can allow you to choose what you want to see when you want to see it. I'm going to emphasize that because I'm one of the inventors of some of the first video streaming services, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a while. We also make movies, and we own Marvel and Pixar. Marvel of course, I was a comic book kid, as I was telling Ray, one of the folks at your organization. And I loved, you know, the Hulk and Spider-Man and all of that. And Disney does that. We now make all of the Star Wars movies, and we have large Star Wars lands inside our parks where you can live and breathe the Star Wars world. And I've been very lucky to be able to make contributions to pretty much every one of these business units. And I'll describe some of those things that I've done. And so at some point you can do it too. This is on the Disney Cruise Line ship. It's part of the Disney Cruise Line interactive systems, and it's sort of like one of the world's largest video games. The kids that you see around that floor are sensed by technology that allows them to all play a number of games while they're on their cruise on that large display floor. So it's one of the things that I've helped to create. I'm going to constantly go back and forth between what I've done unselfishly or selfishly, I should say, and talk about some of the things that you might want to keep in mind if you're considering a career like mine. Now, there's a bubble diagram here. Basic science is where we get all of the ability to do new technology. And that, if you're in school, you know what physics is. It's basically describing how things move, what everything is made of, atoms and molecules, etc. Math is always a basis for a lot of what we do, and a lot of science can be predicted by doing math, and you, in some cases, don't have to do experiments. Astronomy is how we understand our place in the universe. We understand that we, on our little planet Earth, are part of a giant universe. Chemistry is how we work, how our bodies work, how the Earth is structured, etc. But basic science strives to learn, but not necessarily to take those learnings and do something with them. Now, that's where engineers come and invention. What engineers do is to take the things that we learn from science and figure out what we can do with those things in the real world. And we research, that is, think about all of those aspects, what we can do with that science. At Disney, we add another piece of this. You wouldn't want to see some of my prototypes. They're all electronic and they have millions of parts. I think they're beautiful, but just like we don't show the engine in a car, we wrap that car around something that is beautiful. We make the car have a beautiful, sleek shape. That's where the art and design comes in. So if you're one of those scientists or engineers, budding engineers that wants to think about design, that's where we make the things that we bring to life look good. We don't want a car that has its engine sticking out of the top of the hood. We want that car that looks beautiful. I showed you a picture a minute ago of a play floor. My design of the play floor looked a little ragged, right, in the prototype form. Once a designer gets hold of it, it looks great. And we employ a lot of designers at the Disney company. And between the engineering and science and invention side of the world and the art and design, we put it all together to make products that we all use every day. Now, I'm going to go again and show off a little bit. This is Power City. This is at the Walt Disney World, in the portion of the world called Epcot, the experimental prototype community of the future, which is what Walt Disney envisioned. General Davis mentioned that at Walt Disney World and at other places in the Walt Disney system, we want to show what the future looks like. These are huge video games. People would know, unfortunately, there's no one there right now, but these are play floors that people use pucks, like you're playing hockey, and moving video images around on the floor. So it is a completely enveloping video game. So sometimes when people ask me, what do I do? I do a lot of different things. One thing is I make some of the biggest video games in the world because people get into my video games instead of playing them. You may recognize this if you've been to Disneyland in California. These are the Nemo submarines. People can get into the submarines. and actually be underwater. Now, you're underwater, but our technology allows you to look out of the windows of the submarine and see all sorts of magical things. Well, at a part of my career, the submarines, I didn't do the original versions of them. Those have been there for many, many years, but it was becoming hard to maintain the technology, and it was becoming dated. And some of my colleagues in Imagineering, part of the research and development part of Imagineering, came up with new technologies that allowed the submarines to have magical images so that when you look out of the windows of the sub, you really feel like you are underwater and experiencing all sorts of adventures. Now, I'm going to go back to trying to make sure we understand what engineers do and what types of engineers there are. There are electrical and electronics engineers. Those are the people, and I consider myself one of those. We design the hardware. If you're watching me using a computer, I would design the computer and all of the circuitry inside of it. And electrical engineers do that. We design computers, telecommunication systems, how your phone works, robots, displays that put up images, audio systems. If you like good audio, we make it for you. Now, computer scientists, and I'm a bit of a computer scientist, write the software that controls all of the electronic hardware. If you get into a modern car, modern automobile, you have all sorts of touchscreens. I would make all of that technology, but I'd probably turn it over to someone else to program it and to make sure it works well for the driver. But computer scientists also design the control system that can land a space exploring robot on the surface of Mars. The Perseverance rover is on Mars, controlled from the Earth using software designed on the Earth, of course. Mechanical engineers create new machines. If you love working on cars, if you like physical things, mechanical engineers know a lot about how motors work in cars, how machines make other machines, etc. And now there is a new field, which you might be interested in, called mechatronics. It combines machinery and what mechanical engineers used to do, and electronics. And we realize that those two career paths have to work together. Now I'm going to go back to showing off again. I designed, one of my patents is responsible for the entire Where's the Fire attraction at Disney World. That's where guests, shown on the lower left here, use flashlights that let you see through the walls of a house, right? It's almost like X-ray magic. And families compete to find safety hazards behind walls in a bunch of false sort of pieces of houses. And it was actually sponsored by an insurance company, Liberty Mutual. Sometimes we partner with companies to have their name in the parks. And of course, Liberty Mutual wants to keep people from having fires in their houses. So I was proud of this attraction because it taught people how to be safe and how to look for hazards in the home using these X-ray flashlights. If you've been to any of the haunted mansions, I've made lots of contributions to those. There's a scene called, or a part of an attraction in the haunted mansion where there's scary woman, she's sort of a ghost, inside a sphere, floats around magically in a room. And I created the technology that does that. And to this day, a lot of people don't know exactly how it's done. So I like to do things that are sort of magical. I've done some of the first interactive scavenger hunts. That's where you, at Disney, use your cell phone to be playing a game in the entire park. So you're getting clues as to where to go and what to do. And in this case, this is a bookshelf that for everyone else looks like a normal bookshelf in a window that's selling books. When you come up to it with your cell phone and you're playing the game, it suddenly turns into a tracking system to find some bad guy in the park. I've designed interactives, and I'm going to go through these probably pretty quickly. This is the Disneyland Magic Mirror, and it allows guests in a special hotel room to have a direct conversation with Mickey. It understands spoken language, It reacts to you, and it was one of the first what we call AI, artificial intelligence, where computers learn how to interact with humans. These are the Hong Kong, this is also one of my patents. These are the floors in a hotel in Hong Kong, Disneyland. When you step on these floors, koi fish underneath, they're projected, not real, sense where your feet land, and the koi fish run away, scatter, and you hear water splashing. Going back to the Haunted Mansion, here are some portraits which change. As you ride through the Haunted Mansion, this poor gentleman's head gets cut off. Sort of sad, but it's electronic, it comes back. And I redesigned all the paintings in the Haunted Mansion so that they have dual capabilities. They're both art, that looks great, and then suddenly they turn ghoulish. Now, I've also turned some attention to toys. If you like the Infinity light up figures where you buy these and you play them as computer, what would you call additives or adjuncts, and you can get more and more power the more of these characters you have. I designed these light up lightsabers, and those were pretty popular. This is a sort of magic trick that doesn't show up as well in a picture. This is at Disneyland, and that happens to be the character Mace Windu from Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars fan. He's got a glowing saber here. You know, when you watch the movies, their lightsabers glow. You say, how can that happen in the real world? This one does, and it looks very realistic, and it's also one of my patents. Coming soon in the future, as General Davis said, we're predicting the future by saying that we're going to bring the world of Star Wars to our parks. And this is a woman playing against one of my patented systems that allows a person to actually deflect beams of light that you see with your own eyes with your lightsaber. Pretty good. So now I'm going to go back. How did I start here? We'll go to the future again and back. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in East New York, Brooklyn. If you know East New York, it's a pretty tough area. It's mostly Black. It is not an area that has a lot of money, and so I was born into a world where I had to navigate a little bit to move forward. Now, my mom and dad were great. They were super devoted to me, but they never had educations beyond high school. And so they couldn't help me later on. But my dad absolutely got me started on my career in electronics when he brought home, and it's one of my earliest memories, I bet I was 5 or 6 years old, he brought home a battery, a bell, and a bulb. And he got the bell to light, to ring, he got the light bulb lit. And I looked at this, and I think there's a time in your life when something clicks. A lot of people don't know what they're going to do when they get older. I knew from the time I saw this, I was going to be involved with electricity or electronics at some point. I didn't know exactly how that worked, and I didn't know enough about the world of engineering and electronics to know what this thing I felt in my heart was. But I felt it, and I said, I've got to be in a career of science and engineering. I'm going to explain what that unicycle is for a minute. Little personal story to me. When I was a kid, again, we didn't have a lot of money. It's a story of a lot of African Americans in this country, and it's beginning to change, but it was sort of typical. I was an inventor as soon as I could remember. I built radios, and I took stuff apart, and I had motors and everything. And I saw someone on TV, probably when I was 11, riding a unicycle. Now, unicycle cost almost as much as a full quality bicycle because they don't make a lot of them. And I wanted one, so I cut the front tube off of a front wheel out of a tricycle. And you remember it has pedals on it. Put a pipe on the top of it and put a bicycle seat on the top of it and learned to ride that thing. Now, you remember that tricycles don't have air in the tires, so it was a really bumpy ride. My dad looked outside and he saw this poor kid, that's me, riding around on this broken down thing. And about 2 or 3 months later, I come home to find a brand new unicycle leaning up against my bed. And it was just I went crazy. I said, I know Dad can't really afford this kind of stuff, but, and to this day, that's not me as a kid. That's me maybe a few years ago. I still ride unicycles and I have a lot of fun. Okay, back to the story. When I was a kid, I didn't know what an engineer was. I had no idea. I'd never seen one. There weren't any in my neighborhood. And though we did have television, and I watched Mission Impossible, and there was a black engineer. His title in the show was Barney Collier, and he always used technology to save the day for the team. And of course, I was a big fan. So you can still see the original Star Trek series. I was a big fan of Star Trek, and being able to see a black woman who was in charge of communications and did technical things was amazing to me. And Nichelle Nichols, who did that part, is an amazing person. If you can ever watch, I think it's called Woman in Motion, or it's the story of her life, I'd recommend you see it. Okay, back to my story. So in junior high school, I did well. I did all kinds of science fairs and everything. And I had a choice of which high school to go to. One was George Westinghouse, which taught you how to be an electrician, or Brooklyn Tech, that was a preparation for general college and engineering. I didn't know a lot about that, but I had a guidance counselor. And sometimes guidance counselors can really be helpful. A lot of people don't even know what they do. But if you have an issue with a part of your career and you want to understand part of your time in school and you want to understand what choices to make, a guidance counselor can often help you. So I decided to go to Brooklyn Tech. I kept my eyes on the prize. I did my homework, and I did well in school, did well on my tests. And I knew by my junior year, I needed to apply to colleges because I felt like that's where I should be. I applied to MIT, to Columbia University, to a host of schools, and couldn't afford any of them, right? I also, and this is something I don't want you to do if you're a young person, because I was at a good school, colleges came to the school to try to recruit kids to go to college and would be offering scholarships. I was kind of ignorant of those things. Not stupid, just didn't know about them, didn't know what to do. One person from Bell Labs, and Bell Labs used to be the research and engineering company of the world. It no longer exists in the form it did, but it turned out to be an African-American who was running a program to induce more African-American kids to go into the sciences. He did what I call a reach back. He's a grown man. I'm still a kid. He came to the school and said, hey, I want you. You should have come out to some of our recruiting things. I heard about it as I was sitting in class, and over the PA system, I hear, will Lanny Smoot please report to the principal's office? I said, oh my God, what did I do? That's when I met Jim Stewart, who introduced me to the Bell Labs world. I worked at Bell Labs for a number of years. That's me over there in the snow. I think that might have been in Wyoming. That's an old picture of me. I'm the one in the foreground. There's an engineer that was my partner. He's way in the background. And the dog, we don't know about the dog. It was walking by. I'm 30 miles outside of town there. And I designed some of the first telephone systems that brought coin telephones to the rural area. If you're a young person, you don't even know what a coin telephone was, but we all used to have to put money in a box to make a phone call. And I designed pretty much all of the circuitry in rural areas that allowed coin telephones to work way out in the nowheres. Got to do a lot of traveling. I also formed an organization, which I would advise you, when you can remember this, when you're successful, as our STEM hosts are, to reach back to kids. I founded an organization called SIMDIP, the Collective Effort Management Development Program, long title, but it was Black engineers talking to other engineers and educating ourselves to do better in our careers. Okay, later on I worked at Bell Communications Research. Right now we take for granted those big screens. When we go into a video conference room, sometimes at work at least, you'll see big video screens, everything. I developed some of the very first versions of that. And that picture is me, a little younger, talking to people on what I called the video window. And those folks that are on the screen are 40 miles away at one of our other Belcorp headquarters. And we use these systems to communicate amongst Belcorp. One of the first prototypes I made went into the World Trade Center. And as a matter of fact, when it fell, I felt, of course, heartbroken by the people who lost their lives, but also it was the destruction of my first prototype of that system. I've won over my lifetime awards from so many places. R&D Magazine, Scientific American featured me. I've been on television quite a bit on the invention shows, innovation shows, all those things. I'm proud to say, but it all started from a humble beginning of a kid in Brooklyn who wanted to do science. My video window system was in what was called the permanent exhibit in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. I didn't understand that permanent meant 15 years. So it was there for 15 years, replaced by even newer technology. And I am a Disney Research Fellow, highest technical achievement at Disney. I was a Belcorp Fellow when I was at Bell Communications Research. So I've tended to do pretty well around. And you can do this too. I'm not special in any way other than I love what I do. Some of the other things I'm just going to pass by real quickly. I designed some of the first, we all know that copper wires were used for many, many years to carry telephone conversations. As there were more people and using more bandwidth, we needed to be able to have better systems that can transmit more information. I did some of the early work on optical fiber networks that transmitted telephone calls, thousands of telephone calls on a single hair-thin glass fiber, which was impossible with copper wire. I mentioned earlier that, you should watch me in episode 2 of Behind the Attraction on Disney Plus. I'm just a plug for me. And that's possible because of video on demand. Video on demand was a way of allowing people at home to have the same capability to watch video and control it as you had with a VCR. And a lot of you may not even remember what a VCR was because we have streaming now, and I made contributions to that. Finally, I had an idea back then called electronic panning, which hasn't happened yet. And I patented it, and I wish people would be able to use it. And it was that I could control my view when I watch television. If you're watching a sporting event, why can't I look at the end zone? Why can't I look at the pass receiver? Or why can't I pan around and see people in the studio that are making the news? And what I designed, you'll see this is me and a few of my co-engineers, and you're seeing a different image of us coming from the same camera. It's a little hard to see, but right here on the top of this monitor is a camera that's looking at all of us, and we've selected the views we want. And these views can slide left and right. Still think it's a good idea, but not all ideas make it into the world. Okay, now back to where I am now. In research, Disney Research, where I work, we're looking at very new ideas to help the Walt Disney Company to make more realistic technology. This is my electromagnetic eye. When you see those robots, which we call animatronics in our theme parks, they all want to be as realistic as possible. If I open the head of one of those, terrible thing to think about, you'll see that the mechanisms that move the eyes in those animatronics takes up almost the whole top of the head. I made an eye that is no bigger, that can move, that is no bigger than the actual eye. It's moved electromagnetically, and it's quite realistic. I have done all kinds of crazy things. Some of them, as I said, catch on, some don't. This one was a bouncing ball, actually a rolling ball, that rolled along, that is pushed by bladders, basically balloons that pop up on each side of it. So it pops along and rolls along. Besides doing the engineering, I do publish in scientific journals. And that's a big thing for successful engineers and scientists, to let the world know what you're doing. And some of this knowledge just goes out into the world. The Walt Disney Company might use it, but we share that knowledge with others. This is a volumetric display. And if you see the electronics in it, this is my world. This is where I live with this technology. But you wouldn't want to see this thing in your home. It produced video images that were in full 3D. If you were looking into it from the side, from this area, you saw it floating out in space, an image that was completely real. Someday this technology will be in homes, but it needs a little work to get rid of all of the sides of it. This was something that was used to allow guests to be able to draw an image on their 3D self. So this is a girl here. She was, we took a 3D picture of her, superimposed that in 3D, so you wear glasses, and then you can draw over your floating self and draw yourself different images. I'm going to speed up through some of this because I think we're running a little short on time. This is a fun thing. If you look up my name, Lanny Smoot, Lanny Smoot, and interactive zoetrope, you'll see some videos of this I did years ago, I think for a conference where we can bring a solid object. These are ping pong balls with painted faces. By lighting them up in specific orders as you talk, you can do instantaneous stop motion animation. If any of you remember the very, very old movie King Kong, the first one, you see this giant creature and it's moving around. It's moving because an artist moves a little bit of it at a time, takes a picture, moves a little bit at a time. And that's called stop motion animation. I made the first live stop motion animation system that you can talk into it and make it come to life. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, how do you have a successful career? I think there's some magic to it, and this is it. And if I don't impart any other information to you, it's this. We are sometimes forced to say, oh, gee, what field would make the most money? You know, there are mothers, I guess, and dads that want their kid to be a doctor because doctors make a lot of money, or engineers because we do well. But find out what you really love to do. If you like to draw, that's okay. If you want to be an actor, that's okay. If you want to be an engineer and you love science and engineering, that's fine. But figure out in yourself what you really want to do. Now, there's probably a profession. This is a very wide world, and the internet has made it smaller, so you can now learn about other people's careers. I didn't have that when I was a kid. Rich kids had the Encyclopedia Britannica. If you were a poor kid like I was, you just had an encyclopedia, and that's where you got your information. Nowadays, you can find out about all sorts of careers and all sorts of things, but figure out what you really want to do. If there's a profession that does it, start heading towards that. Read as much as you can about it, learn as much about that profession as you possibly can, and you will do well. Now, my next point is it takes a lot of time to become good at things. I didn't start inventing really well until I kind of spent a lot of time as a kid doing it, a lot of time in junior high school doing it, in high school. Because I loved it, I did a lot of it. There's a book by a fellow named Malcolm Gladwell, who I like how he writes and the things he describes. And he says that for people to become really good at something, I mean world class at something, it takes 10,000 hours of work. That's years of work. Now, if you start young, and I did, you have that. And if you start young and find out what you want to do when you're young, you'll get the 10,000 hours and you'll have fun. I just have a little tip, and it has to do with what you do in practice. I interview a lot of people for jobs. And one of the questions I ask is, what do you do when you're not at work? And let me give you a good answer. You better say you do what you would do at that job when you're not doing something else. A lot of people say, oh, I like fishing and I like mountain climbing. Those are all good because they show you're well-rounded. But if I talk to an engineer and I say, what do you do when you're not working? That person says, oh, I design things for my kids. I constantly am working to make new electronic gadgets around the house, etc. That's the person I'm going to hire. And again, if you're an artist, what do you do when you're, not working for your other art company or, going to school for art. I draw. That's all I do. So that's just a tip that I just threw it in as an extra. So let me leave you with this. If you do what you love and you make it your job, you'll enjoy what you do all of your life. When I go to work, I think people would be jealous of me because people say, I don't want to go to work. I hate it, etc. I love what I do. And as a result, I do a lot of it and I have fun and I've had a successful career. So that is it for me. Whoa. Okay. Well, that is definitely it for me. So I'm going to go back to the studio, as they say, and going to close this and see what happens. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I can't hear you. General Richardson, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. I had myself on mute, so that fixes that. Look, thank you so much. It's clear that you do love your job.
Oh, yeah.
And what a comprehensive look at what you've done over your lifetime and all of the success that you've had. A number of comments have come up that people are so impressed. And I just wanted to go back probably 50, 60 years or so when there was the Disney Mickey Mouse Club.
Mm-hmm. MICKEYMOUSE. Anyone who's been around, we remember the song.
Yeah, but they would have a daily show, and on Wednesdays it was today is Wednesday. You know what that means? We're gonna have a special guest, and you are truly our Career Day special guest today. So thank you so much for all of your comments. A number of questions have come up.
Sure.
And so I'll start there. And so Ada would like to know, how was the application process to become or what is maybe the application process to become an Imagineer?
Okay, so we have a really giant website. If you go to Walt, and I'm not going to be able to give you the exact .com, but look up careers at the Walt Disney Company on the internet, and you can browse around and you'll find that very quickly. So, and you can submit applications online to be an Imagineer, or, one of the things about the Disney Company, I think there are about 200,000 employees, and as a result, there are 200,000 different types of jobs and different types of people. You can be an Imagineer, you can be a movie producer, you can be a movie writer, you can be a story person, you can be a toy designer, you can be an artist. So I would say take a look online. I wish I was a little bit more prepared. I'd have a website, but today there's no excuse for not being able to find it. Look up careers at Disney, you're going to find it.
Okay, well, Ray or somebody at CCG fix that for you, and that has been streaming across. That link has been streaming across the screen here for us.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. So yes. So what future projects are you excited to be working on that are good? Either be at Disneyland or Disney World, and does your work cover both of those? It
covers all of it. It covers every part. Depending on what's needed in terms of technology, I can have a thing that goes into a park in Shanghai. I can have a Disneyland. By the way, there are Disney parks in China, Disney parks in Japan. So my work can go in all sorts of places. And you asked another part of the question, but did I answer that? Or no?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But what future projects?
Okay, future projects. I'm working. I'll tell you one that I'm going to challenge your audience to find one of the projects that I'm working on right now. If you type into the internet, Disney's new lightsaber, right? Even you can do it now. Don't go away from this great program, but you can do it. And what you're going to see is a picture of Rey, the character from the Star Wars movies, using a lightsaber that is the most realistic lightsaber in the world. And you may remember in Star Wars, the weapon of choice is this glowing lightsaber. Well, people have been trying to make ones that look realistic, and my patent enabled that lightsaber. So I'm working on things that support our movies in terms of technologies. So that's an example. Also, I'll give you a little clue. I was a Star Trek fan. I explained why when I was younger. And in the second series, there's a room called the holodeck, right? And a holodeck is a room you can go into and you can be anywhere in the world, anywhere in the universe. You can walk on the surface of the moon. You could walk in Mars. You could be in Paris. You could be anywhere. I'm going to try to bring that to life. And I will say that we're already working on things that allow people to walk in any direction they want on a huge surface and be, how can I say it, and not hit other people that are on that same surface and not hit the walls of the room. And that's coming. And it's probably the project that I'm most excited about. We're going to try to make that holodeck come true.
Well, that sounds very exciting. So
it's very exciting.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. I want to finish it.
I'm going to be in Orlando and plan to visit Disney World next summer for a sorority event. But I don't know that your project will be ready then, but once it is ready, that's one of the things I will definitely be trying to see.
All right.
So I'm sure we have a number of students on the call. What advice, or maybe even some parents on the call, what advice would you give to a student who wants to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I gave some of that advice during the talk. Mm-hmm. Figure out what excites you. When you are a young person, there has to be something that you like to do. Some people, by the way, it's okay if you don't know what that is yet. Some people, are in their 20s before they really, or at the end of their lives, before they decide what they're going to do. But I think for those who have a love, a passion, and I'm going to tell you something, General. When I saw talks like the one I just gave, I felt sometimes that person was talking to me. I know right now in the audience here, not everyone is going to know this, but there's someone that's saying, oh my God, he's describing my life. I don't have a lot of stuff. I make things, I do it, and I'm going to be just like him. Well, be better than me. Okay, that's number one. Be better than me, but I'm talking to you right now. I'm talking to that person out there that wants to do something. I encourage you to do a lot of it. Don't feel bad. Kids who are smart, I'm going to say, dark underbelly of the world. Sometimes kids who are smart suffer a little bit. They're the ones that are always carrying the books around. You're doing the right thing. Be brave. Be the person who wants to learn and wants to practice what they do. I tell you something that didn't work out for me. I because I was always in sort of these advanced classes, you had to play the violin. Okay, that's something that didn't work for me. I played the violin for 5 years. I was probably better when I started than when I ended. So there's a question where you don't do things that you don't like to do. Life is short. Find the things you like, do them. I guarantee you, if you become good, you can make a living. So that's my strongest message to kids.
Well, thank you. And that's very, very good advice. I appreciate that. With all of the tentacles that Disney has in companies and TV and movies and that sort of stuff, have you been able to meet any of the Disney stars from Star Trek or other of the movies?
Well, we do Star Wars, not Star Trek. I don't want to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just happen to like Star Trek, but Star Wars. Yeah, I have. The guy from.
Who's the most interesting?
Oh, say again. Who is the most interesting?
Yeah.
I met P. Diddy. Now, how did that happen? You're like, how does that have a number of stars visit Disney because they may be a part of something we're going to do. And because I work in R&D, which is a glossy place, if you want to see sort of magical things, if you come to the R&D organization, we always have mock-ups, prototypes of the latest cool thing. So being shown through Disney, sometimes those stars are starstruck of us. They're more excited to see what we do. They say, yeah, I'm just an actor or a singer, but you guys are magicians. So Antonio Banderas, trying to think of who, oh my goodness. I am such a bad person with names, but yeah, that happens. And the guy from Tool Time or whatever the show was, he was a real very funny guy. Yeah, but I've met quite a few what people would call stars. But when I see them, what's really nice is they're just people. They're coming to see you, and I've also met who is, oh my God, the guy who plays the captain of the Enterprise, and I just forgot his name. He just was shot into space.
Yeah, William Shatner.
Well, yeah, oh my goodness, William Shatner. He was, in some sense, a hero to me just because he ran a starship, which was futuristic. But I've gotten to meet him, quite a few other people.
Okay, well, I know that certainly has been exciting in your lifetime. Yeah, and it's good times. Yeah, mm-hmm. Still having fun.
I'm still having fun.
Absolutely.
And when people ask me, what projects I like, it's almost always the one I'm working on. I have to think back, and but go ahead.
Yeah. So there are a number of different theme parks. There's Six Flags, and I think the Great American something or the other out out from San Francisco. What sets Disney apart from other theme parks?
I'm going to go that's a really wonderful question. Disney's parks are theme parks, and that word is magical to us. Walt Disney himself knew that there were carnivals and there were little parks and whatnot, but he wanted to allow a person who goes to our parks to completely envelop themselves, surround themselves in an environment. If you go to Tomorrowland in our parks, you're going to see futuristic things and not see other things. Everything that you see in that park is themed, is made so that it reminds you that you're in this whole new environment. So we surround you with story. It becomes obvious what goes on there, and the people that live in that part of the park. If you're in Adventureland, you're going to be in a different place. You're going to be part of the adventure and feel it. Other parks put up a roller coaster and say, there you go, have fun. Our attraction will put you into a story that brings the movies that we make. And this was Walt's big innovation. Walt Disney made movies. And he says, I want the people who go to our parks to be able to live in that movie. It's like the three-dimensional world of the movie that surrounds you. And that's what theme parks, which Disney makes, is distinguished from what people make, which are just, carnivals or, that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been to several of those other ones, and I certainly have to agree with you there. It's been a while, though, since I've been to Disneyland or Disney World, and I won't tell you how long ago that's been.
We won't. We both don't have to talk about it, okay? When we talk about careers, we say a few years,
Yeah. But it was certainly very, very exciting, and one of the things that I like about Disneyland are the parades.
Oh, yeah.
I know that doesn't have anything to do with your work, probably.
Yes, it does. Yes,
okay.
it does.
Wow.
So this is it. We have things called the electrical light parades. Now, these, if you haven't been to the parks in a while, LED lighting, those small, solid state light bulbs can be studded all over our attractions, all over our moving vehicles. And some of the things you'll see are just so magical. When the Disney parks become a different animal when it gets dark. There are fireworks, right? And even our fireworks are a research job. When we shoot fireworks into the air, everyone uses explosives to blow up like a rocket and pollutes the air, et cetera. Ours are like blowing through a straw. We actually do air launched fireworks, right? So I just went to a site. So I want to say that science and engineering is in everything we do. The electric light parades are all technology, illusions that make you think things are happening that aren't really happening. What are called volumetric displays, where the image that you see has depth. So it's not just, it could be the side of a truck that looks like it's got people that are inside of it, but they're all virtual, done electronically. So there's magic, technical magic, in pretty much everything that the Walt Disney Company does. And I would say this, the Walt Disney Company, the R&D organization that I come from is a serious R&D organization. We do actual research that gets published, spread to the world. We, of course, keep the things that help us to make the magic. We don't give it all away. But people, you would say, Apple or Google is a company that hires scientists and engineers because they do science and engineering projects. They don't realize that the Walt Disney Company has the largest full-time staff of researchers of any entertainment company. We make the magic, as they say.
Okay, well, wonderful. One last question, and
Sure.
then we're going to turn it back over to Ray or whoever comes up next on the screen.
Right.
You have so many inventions. Are there any that you believe will come to be items that will be in homes for everyday use?
Well, some are, like some of the interactive things, but I think that holodeck type thing will be important in the future. It's the latest project I'm working on a lot. And, I tend to be most interested in what I'm doing now, but I think it has tremendous potential.
Okay, well, thank you so much. You've been a wonderful, wonderful guest speaker.
You've been a wonderful host. So I'm happy. I said in private, I don't think I've ever talked to a general. So General Richardson, I am pleased to have met you. And
General Crawford, who you heard earlier, he and I grew up together in the Army. He used to work for me. And so I am very, very proud of him, very proud of you, and so excited about all of the things that you're working on. And if holodecks become a reality for a home, I hope it's before I have to go to a nursing home and won't be able to. But I plan to figure out how to have that.
I'm going to hurry up. I'll try to hurry up. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All
right, Ray, back to you.
Well, Lanny, this is Walt Davis on now.
Yes, hi, General Davis, Admiral Davis. Too many high-level ranking people.
By the way, one of the Star Wars was filmed on my ship years ago. I tell you about that.
Oh, was that the one where they go back in time?
Remember when they were running through the ship and chasing? Anyway, we'll talk about it one day.
All right, excellent.
Okay, well, Joan Richardson she really described it well, what you presented to us today. But this idea of the real world and the dream world that Walt Disney had, and bringing people from the real, making the dream world the real world, and vice versa.
Yes,
I think is a little bit of where we're headed here with Bea and Bea Stars and Stripes.
Yes.
When you talk to Tyrone again, he'll tell you his vision. He always talks about what he calls a digital twin. And that allows us to do all of this where we can reach so much further today in the digital world than we can in the real world. But we can make those, you won't even be able to tell. If you listen to last week, we had the Women of Color event. And for that event, you probably didn't know which part of it was real world and which part was digital world, as we call it.
Right.
So today you've helped us reach even further. I asked the audience today to be the 8 to 80 crowd because you had something to say for all of us, those of us on the 80 end and those of us on the 8 end. So we look forward to working with you in the future and having you help us with getting more and more of our youth into engineering. As you also remember when you grew up, they said, I'm sure they gave you the lecture about be something they need, and if they need you bad enough, they will use you. And you picked something they needed, and they didn't care about what color you were, or just what you could produce for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the world we live in today, and you're going to help make that world better.
Thank you for saying that, and I hope to keep living up to it.
Good. And we want to look at those 102 patents. Maybe we can use one of those.
I would say maybe. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for attending today. We intend to use this material today to really further our reach. So goodbye, and thank you all, the youth, for turning up today. Bye-bye.
Welcome. You have arrived at STEM City, USA, a safe and trusted community where you can find people and resources to help you become everything you are and beyond, accessible to all who reach for the stars.